ornithopter. Based on some of history's earliest flying machines, the free-to-cast O2 Flyer is one of Magic the Gathering's most recognizable cards, first printed in Antiquities and still receiving reprints to this day. But decades before the artifact's first printing in 1994, Frank Herbert introduced the ornithopter into the sci-fi and fantasy lexicon in his 1965 book, Dune. Even with Dune's recent explosion in popularity thanks to the movies by Denis Villeneuve, Dune's outsized influence on genre fiction remains under-acknowledged and downright hard to wrap your head around. With its giant sandworms, scrying and fortune-telling, and its recent forays into the aesthetics of outer space with Unfinity and Edge of Eternities, Magic the Gathering owes as much to Dune as anyone. Which begs the question, are we ever getting a universes beyond Dune? Hi, my name is Alessio. I'm a 15-year Commander player, and I hate Magic's Universes Beyond sets for the simple reason that I love making custom cards based on outside characters and stories. And it's not just me. If you're unfamiliar with Star Wars The Gathering, do yourself a favor and give it a look. It's a series of fan-made sets totally committed to synthesizing the characters and story of Star Wars through Magic mechanics that has been free for people to print out and draft and build and play with for years. When you look at the work and love put into Star Wars The Gathering and so many other fan projects, it's pretty clear what's going on. The community invented Magic crossovers, and Wizards has stolen it just so they can sell it right back to us. That's my rant on that. If you don't like it, please yell at me in the comments and boost this video's algo. Everyone else, buckle in, because if Universes Beyond Dune is inevitable, I'm claiming it for the fans today, and I've got a Spice Hoard's worth of custom Dune cards to prove it. A modern spin on Star Wars The Gathering, Universes Beyond Dune is a set of 16 commander decks meant to tell the story and capture the feeling of all 6 books in Frank Herbert's original Dune Chronicles. These decks are book first, in the same way that UB Spider-Man was based on the comics, but not book only. I will be nodding to some iconic moments from all 3 major film adaptations, as well as drawing on them for art and flavor text. This won't be too noticeable in our first 4 decks, since each adaptation is very faithful to Book 1 in their own ways, but if you want to be sure to catch every reference you can, grab a book reader buddy, and they'll be delighted to fill you in on anything you miss. Disclaimer, I haven't playtested these decks, nor do I claim to be a skilled designer of Magic cards or environments, but my intent here is for these decks to have interplay with one another, to build on a core series of mechanical themes, just as the books build on their literary themes, and to present a convincing vision of what Dune could look like in Magic the Gathering. I'm also shooting for them to feel as close to boxed Commander Precons as possible, prioritizing fun and variance over game-warping cards and optimized lines to victory. I'm designing 32 original cards for each deck, and filling out the rest of the 99 with existing cards that play into the given theme while doing everything I can to minimize breaking the immersion through flavor mismatches. No cards called the Llanowar whatever or Urza's blah. Wizards and ogres are okay in moderation, but no Vidalkins, no angels, no zombies, or any other fantasy life forms that don't exist in Dune. Today I'm going to be breaking down my design for Atreides Acumen, one of 4 decks based on the first book in the Dune Chronicles, or Dune Part 1 and Part 2 if you're a movie person. This deck aims to capture the flavor of House Atreides on their homeworld of Caladan and during their brief tenure as feudal overlords of Arrakis prior to being massacred and usurped by House Harkonnen and the Padishah Emperor. Spoilers, I guess. I don't know, man. You've had 60 years to read the book. Atreides Acumen is a white, blue, and red deck, also known as the Jeskai color combination. For every deck in Universes Beyond Dune, I chose colors that matched the faction at a philosophical level, while also tying those colors to wider cultures and factions in the Dune universe. White, the color of authority, here represents the Faufreluches, or the feudal power structure of the Empire. Everything from the mercantiles of Chom, to the nobles of the Landsraad, to the imperial throne. At a philosophical level, it evokes the sense of discipline and unity that makes the Atreides military such a threat to the Emperor. With me! Blue, the color of mind, represents the Bene Gesserit and the Mentats, who House Atreides employs, and who in turn have major influence over the decisions of House Atreides. Philosophically, blue is also a good match for the Atreides fighting style, which prioritizes strategy and quick thinking over brute force. And red, the color of passion, represents the Atreides themselves, and the powerful emotions that the noble family is known for stirring up in their friends and allies. This fervor also plays into the Atreides fighting style, which, while orderly and clever, is nonetheless fast and aggressive. The Jeskai colors together suggest a faction that uses wit, precision, and ingenuity in the name of protecting their ideals and a larger group that they care for deeply, the Atreides in a nutshell. While I've of course developed some of my own mechanical innovations to bring Dune to life in Magic the Gathering, I've tried to primarily draw from existing playstyles and mechanics, as official pre-constructed decks tend to revive and build on past concepts rather than introducing their own whole brand new idea. The primary Atreides mechanics are soldier typal and shield and ability counters. The Atreides are known throughout the universe for having an exceptionally powerful army, so many of the cards here make 1/1 white human soldier creature tokens. Note that the human creature type is also crucial for the flavor of Dune, which is all about accessing the hidden powers of the human mind and body. Because we're going wide and emphasizing the unity of the Atreides forces, some cards in the deck have a version of the Boros mechanic Battalion, which triggers when 3 creatures attack together. As a nod to the famous Holtzman shields that the Atreides and other Dune characters use to protect themselves in hand-to-hand combat, we're bringing back the shield counters introduced in Streets of New Capenna.
I have you.
To symbolize how the Atreides outsmart their opponents regardless of physical strength or stature, there are also cards in the deck that put ability counters like First Strike and Trample counters on your creatures. Prescience is a keyword of my own design that appears across all the decks in Universes Beyond Dune. Featured primarily on Advisors, the creature type representing the Bene Gesserit and Mentats, permanents with Prescience allow you to look at the top card of your library at any time and the top card of the library of any player who doesn't have a permanent with Prescience. This is a reference to how 2 characters with Prescience, such as Paul Muad'Dib and Edric the Guild Navigator, cannot see what the other one is doing and thinking in their visions of the future. While Prescience does have a very specific meaning in Dune related to seeing the future, it here is a catch-all referring to a variety of mental techniques in Dune, such as Mentat projection and Bene Gesserit truth sense. Spice tokens are another one of my own original mechanics for Universes Beyond Dune, representing the all-important Spice melange. Spice are artifact tokens that can be tapped and sacrificed to activate 3 simultaneous abilities: gain 1 life, scry 1, and put a land from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. Everything now seems to make treasures and clues and food and artifact tokens seem to have completely taken over the flow of Magic play, and we should expect nothing less powerful from the most important substance in the known universe. With all the preamble out of the way, it's time for the moment you've all been waiting for, the card-by-card deck breakdown. The face commander for this deck is the Duke Leto Atreides. Leto is 2 white, blue, red for a 4/4 human noble. Whenever Leto enters, you create 2 1/1 human soldier tokens, and whenever Leto attacks with 3 or more soldiers, you can sacrifice one of those soldiers to look at the top 4 cards of your library and put a human from among those cards onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking with a shield counter on it. This pseudo-polymorph ability represents how Leto raises his soldiers into powerhouse fighters known across the Empire. Just like real precons, each Universes Beyond Dune deck has a backup commander that emphasizes different play lines than the face commander. This deck has a partner pair for its backup commander, Paul Atreides, with Lady Jessica, Renegade's sister. Paul is white for a 1/1 human noble. He has the training keyword, meaning he gets a +1/+1 counter whenever he attacks with a creature that's stronger than him. And whenever Paul attacks with 3 soldiers, he gets a shield counter, representing his shield training with Gurney Halleck. With 2 counters, Paul adds soldier to his creature types and gains First Strike. At 4 counters, he's also an advisor with the new Prescience keyword, a reference to his Mentat awakening from the middle of the first book and the first movie. And make it to 6 counters with Paul, and he goes full Kwisatz Haderach, gaining the demigod creature type, along with double strike and hexproof. But to get there, he'll need help from his mother Jessica, a 3/2 human advisor rogue for 1 blue red. When Jessica attacks, you may pay a blue, a red, or both. If you've paid blue, target creature phases out. If you paid red, target creature is goaded. And Jessica also says that whenever a goaded creature attacks, she creates a soldier token. The soldiers help trigger Paul's battalion ability, while the phasing can either clear blockers out of the way or allow Paul to swing, trigger his effects, then poof to safety before he's blocked. Jessica's one of my personal favorite designs from this deck, from how the red in her color identity highlights the importance of her love for Leto and Paul, to how phasing and goad capture the flavor of the Weirding Way and Bene Gesserit voice, respectively. Thufir Hawat, Mentat Assassin, is the first card that shows the power of the new Prescience keyword. Thufir is 2 white-blue for a 2/4 Human Advisor Assassin. He has Prescience, and when he enters, he creates a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may reveal the top card of any library. Until the end of your next turn, whenever an opponent casts a spell that shares a type with that card, untap target creature you control and put a shield counter on it. Thufir keeps you 1 step ahead of your opponents, and if they don't respect it, you're gonna get ahead. Gurney Halleck, Balisette Virtuoso, one of Paul's mentors, naturally comes with the mentor keyword. Gurney is 4 red-white for a 3/5 human warrior bard with prowess and vigilance in addition to mentor. Whenever Gurney mentors a creature, put a prowess or vigilance counter on that creature in addition to the +1/+1 counter. And whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, create one of those 1/1 white human soldier creature tokens. And Paul's other mentor, Duncan Idaho Swordmaster, follows a similar design. Duncan is 4 and a red for a 5/4 human warrior with first strike and menace in addition to mentor. Whenever Duncan mentors a creature, you can put a first strike or a menace counter on that creature along with the +1/+1. And whenever a counter is removed from a creature you control, and whenever a creature you control that had counters on it dies, Duncan deals 2 damage to each opponent. Duncan hits hard and is applying pressure even when your creatures trade. Our final legendary creature for this deck is the Fremen Majordomo Shadout Mapes, a 1/2 human for 1 and a blue. She says other legendary creatures you control enter with an additional shield counter on them, and whenever a counter is removed from a creature, or whenever a creature with a counter on you control dies, you draw a card. Let's move on to our other rares and mythics. The Butlerian Jihad is part of a cycle of monocolor sagas that have a chance to perpetuate themselves when they reach their final chapter, showing how the major past events in the Dune universe continue to impact things in the present. The Butlerian Jihad is known in recent adaptations such as Dune Prophecy as the Great Machine War, which you can see clearly in Chapter 1, which destroys all non-human creatures and all artifacts. When we hit Chapter 2, each player who controls no artifacts creates a 2/2 blue human advisor creature token with prescience, symbolizing how the mental training schools emerged in the aftermath of this war. And at Chapter 3, each player draws a card for each human they control, but if any player controls an artifact, exile the Butlerian Jihad and return it to the battlefield at the beginning of your next upkeep. So if you don't want to be stuck in an endless cycle of board wipes, destroy the thinking machines. 10,000 Year Canley is another piece of this saga cycle, found in both the Atreides and Harkonnen decks, as it represents their never-ending feud. At Chapter 1, you choose an opponent. 10,000 Year Canley deals 4 damage to target creature that player controls, and that creature deals damage to you equal to its power. At Chapter 2, you create a number of 1/1 white human soldier creature tokens equal to the damage dealt to you by sources chosen player controlled since this permanent entered. And at Chapter 3, if you control more creatures than the player you chose, you draw 3 cards, exile 10,000 Year Canley, and return it to the battlefield under the chosen player's control. The Orange Catholic Bible is part of yet another cycle of legendary spells, all of different card types, that represent the Dune universe's major religious belief systems. This is a legendary sorcery for X and red that says remove all counters from creatures, then create a copy of up to X target creatures. The copies aren't legendary and gain haste. Sacrifice them at the beginning of the next end step. X cannot be larger than the number of counters removed by the Orange Catholic Bible. Again, removing counters can help trigger your synergies in this deck, and the added limitation of there needing to be counters on creatures to remove allows this card to be very affordable for the potentially explosive effect that it can have. The Great Convention is part of another cycle of 2-color sagas showing mostly more recent events in the Dune story. The Great Convention is Dune's version of a nuclear ceasefire, a social contract designed to keep the Emperor or any other major house from exerting unilateral control over the universe through major violence. So at Chapter 1, each player who doesn't have the highest life total creates a 1/1 white human soldier creature token and gains 3 life. At Chapter 2, each player who doesn't control the most creatures puts a +1/+1 counter on each creature they do control. Those creatures gain vigilance until your next turn. And at Chapter 3, you proliferate, then proliferate again for each player who controls creatures with greater total power than creatures you control. Duke's command is 1 blue, red, white for an instant with the text on all commands of choose 2. And the options are create 2 1/1 white human soldier creature tokens, put your choice of a shield counter, a first strike counter, or a vigilance counter on target creature, goad target creature, or draw a card for each tapped creature you control, then discard a card. Watch out for a command in each of these precons. Castle Caladan is the deck's rare ability land. It taps for colorless, but for white, blue, red, and tapping it, you can put a shield counter on each legendary creature you control. Not bad at all. Our last rare is Personal Shield, an artifact for 2 and a blue. Whenever a human enters under your control, you can pay 1, and if you do, put a shield counter on that creature. And whenever a source an opponent controls would deal non-combat damage to you, reduce that damage by 1 for each permanent you control with a shield counter on it. Moving on to the uncommons, Atreides Avenger is 2 red for a 2/1 human soldier. When you cast Atreides Avenger, copy it if there are 2 or more types of counters on creatures you control. And it has haste and battle cry, meaning that second copy of it, if you can get it out, will go a long way in combat. Bene Gesserit Voice is 1 blue for a sorcery that goads target creature and causes that creature to lose all abilities until your next turn. And Bene Gesserit, of course, can repeat this trick as many times as they want, because you can pay 1 blue, tap an untapped advisor you control, and return this card from your graveyard to your hand. Halleck's Parry represents the principle that the slow blade penetrates the shield. It's 5 red-white for an instant with Convoke, and the next time you would take damage this turn, prevent that damage and put a number of +1/+1 counters, divided as you choose, among any number of creatures that convoked this spell. Hawat's Men is a card named after kind of an in-joke I have with my friend Nick about how many times in the first Dune book Hawat's Men are mentioned. You don't really get to know any of these guys, but he's just got men. This is an instant for 3 blue and white that counters target spell, and you create a number of those 1/1 soldier tokens equal to the mana value of the spell it countered. Jessica's Weirding is also an instant for blue and red. As an additional cost to cast Jessica's Weirding, you may sacrifice a spice. Jessica's Weirding moves any number of counters from target creature to another target creature you control, and if you sacrificed a spice for the spell's casting cost, you can also put a flying counter on that creature. If Jessica's Weirding puts counters on a creature, you may have that creature phase out. The Weirding Way has been sort of mangled by some of the film adaptations, especially the Lynch movie, but the Weirding Way effectively is a sort of optical illusion used in combat to pop out of your opponent's range of vision, which the phasing is a nod to here. Put Your Hand in the Box and Gom Jabbar are flavor-forward cards here to represent Paul's humanity test at the beginning of the story. Put Your Hand in the Box is an enchantment aura for 3 and a red. It enchants a player, and when Put Your Hand in the Box enters, the enchanted player exiles all cards in their hand. A player enchanted with Put Your Hand in the Box skips their draw step. So while your hand is in the box, you don't have access to cards in hand as a resource to play the game. At the beginning of your upkeep, you reveal the top card of your library. If a non-land card is revealed this way, you deal damage to enchanted player equal to that card's mana value. If a land card is revealed this way, you sacrifice Put Your Hand in the Box and return all cards exiled with it to their owner's hands. But for 0, the enchanted player may exile Put Your Hand in the Box, saving them from the potential burn, but stranding all the cards that it took out of their hand in exile forever. I did have a lot of fun with this design, and I think the little mini game that it creates is a solid representation of the situation Paul is put in, where he's asked to accept some risk and endure some pain, rather than pulling his hand out of the box and facing certain death. Meanwhile, Gom Jabbar is 1 colorless mana for an equipment. It has flash, and when it enters, you can attach it to an advisor or assassin for free. The equipped creature has death touch and gains whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, that player discards a card. If they do not, that player loses half their life, rounded up. That last part is, of course, taken from Quiet to Spike, which I feel like is a pretty good representation of a poison needle that kills you on the spot, short of putting some kind of, player dies or instant win clause on this, which seemed unnecessary. And moving on to the commons. Atreides Battle Tongue is part of a common cycle of auras that represent the different kinds of training each of our major factions bestows upon their acolytes and apprentices. Atreides Battle Tongue costs 1 and a red. Enchanted creature has first strike and haste, and other creatures you control that share a creature type with enchanted creature also have first strike and haste. Because each of these decks has 2 of the training auras, we also have Bene Gesserit training here. It's 1 and a blue, an enchanted creature has prowess and prescience, and whenever enchanted creature deals combat damage to a player, goad target creature that player controls, all Bene Gesserit stuff. Light Path to Caladan is our last cycle card in this deck, an Evolving Wilds variant with archetypal upside. Tap and sacrifice this to search your library for a basic plains, island, or mountain, and put it onto the battlefield tapped. And whenever Light Path to Caladan is put into a graveyard by any means, you create one of those 1/1 soldier tokens. Portrait of the Old Duke is an artifact for 3 colorless. It taps for white, blue, or red, or you can tap it so that the next time you would create a soldier token this turn, you create that many of those tokens +1 instead. Soldiers tend to be 1/1s, I think, throughout Magic, but if anyone knows of a bigger or cooler or stronger soldier token that this card could copy, let me know in the comments. Off-World Security Detail is 2 white for a 1/4 human soldier with vigilance, and whenever Off-World Security Detail enters or dies, put a shield counter on another target creature you control. Ornithopter Ace is a 1/3 human pilot for 1 and a blue. It has flying, and whenever it attacks with 3 or more soldiers, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying, and put a flying counter on up to 1 target creature you control. Each of these decks also has some representations of mundane artifacts and technologies you find in Dune, including the Film Book, an artifact for 1 colorless. You can pay 4 and tap Film Book to put your choice of a Death Touch counter, a First Strike counter, a Flying counter, a Lifelink counter, a Menace counter, a Trample counter, or a Vigilance counter on target creature you control. And this ability costs 1 less for each different type of counter already on that creature. Poison Snooper is another artifact that deals with counters. It costs 2 colorless, and when it enters, you may look at target player's hand. You can also pay 2, tap, and sacrifice Poison Snooper to remove any number of counters from target permanent, and draw a card for each different type of counter removed this way. Sook Healing is an enchantment for 2 white that has that old Simic Graft mechanic where it enters with +1/+1 counters on it that you can move to other creatures as they enter. And whenever a counter is removed from a creature, or whenever a creature you control with counters on it dies, gain 3 life. Truth Sense is an instant for 2 blue, and like Jessica's Weirding, you have the option of sacrificing a spice as an additional cost to cast it. Truth Sense counters target non-creature spell unless its controller pays 3, and if you sacrificed a spice, you also counter all spells on the stack not cast from the player's hand. By commanders, by stuff played from exile and whatnot, Truth Sense is keeping us all honest. And our last original card for this deck is Unstable Spice Crawler, a 4/1 vehicle for 3 colorless. This card is a reference to the desert rescue scene toward the beginning of the story, and it represents a piece of machinery that's basically a trap set by the Harkonnens. When it enters or dies, you go to creature, and whenever Unstable Spice Crawler deals combat damage to a player, you create 2 spice tokens and then sacrifice it. If these decks were made by Wizards of the Coast, they'd likely all have original Dune-themed art. So to prove the concept for each deck, I've chosen 2 staple cards to give an alt art treatment to. Here we have an Offer You Can't Refuse. This was my friend Corey's idea, even though it's obviously a reference to The Godfather for Streets of New Capenna. It also does a really good job of showing how the Empire is sort of shoving money at House Atreides to strong-arm them into making this ill-fated journey to Arrakis. And Stroke of Midnight shows that trap finally being sprung, a powerful removal spell that references the Atreides being attacked in the middle of the night. If you click the link in the description to see the full deck list, including all reprints, look for cards like Aegis of the Legion, Assemble the Legion, Mass Appeal, and Coat of Arms that either complement the themes of the deck, fit the flavor, or themselves inspired some of these original designs. And that's it for Atreides Acumen. If you thought this was cool, please give us a like and comment with your favorite design, and definitely let me know what your experience was like if you try these out in paper or on Tabletop Simulator. And make sure to subscribe for notifications on the next Universes Beyond Dune videos.